This is KPPQ LP Ventura, 104.1 FM, and we're in the Women's Room, where we appreciate and support each other. I'm your host, Kathleen Good. Okay, women, today's guest is a guy. Please meet George Sandoval, who is director of the Oxnard Film Society, a local nonprofit that brings independent films to an Oxnard cinema as an alternative to mainstream movies. Hi, George. We're so happy to have you here today.
Good afternoon. Good to be here.
Great. I recruited him to be a guest in the Women's Room the night I saw a woman-centered film at the Film Society. When I went over to thank him for bringing us that movie, George replied, "Well, I wanted to ramp up women's issues." Well, I'll tell you, he got his pass to get in to talk to us right then and there. Today, more than ever, we need to build alliances. It's important that we show up for other groups that are discriminated against. You're a stand-up guy, George. Thanks for standing up for women.
You're welcome. That's not hard to do.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. So let's get a little background on you. I understand you're a filmmaker yourself. Where did you study, and what type of films do you make?
Well, sure. Just, when I always introduce myself, I say I was born and raised in Oxnard, went to Santa Clara Grammar School, high school, went to college, went to a couple of different colleges, St. Mary's College, ended up dropping out for a reason, then ended up going to Vietnam, came back, went to Moorpark College, ended up going to, at Moorpark College, ended up doing study in television, film, and radio. So, and being 17, 18 years old, I didn't really know what to do. But after I came back from Vietnam, and then I went to college, back to college, I just said, what do I want to do? So I just loved music, so I got into music, got into TV, and then ended up going to film school at a small school in L.A. called Columbia College, which was an interesting school, very hands-on, you learn some theory, and then they give you a 16mm camera, and you go out and make films.
Oh, wow. What's the first film you made?
Actually, the first film I made I made a couple of shorts in college. But then after that, after I was out of college, I ended up coming back to Oxnard and got a job with the city of Oxnard directing plays, which was actually kind of fun. So I taught drama classes to children, and then I ended up working with the adults directing plays. And I always thought when you're in the middle of directing kids, you go, boy, I can hardly wait till I get to the adults. So then a few months later, you're working with the adults, and I thought, wow, there's not too much difference here.
That's funny.
So anyway, I ended up spending time in the late 70s, 80s in L.A., working as a freelance, trying to do anything I could to get into the film business. So I've done it all. I've done electrical, I've done grip, I've done production management, line producing, just done a variety of projects, commercials, low budget, independent films. I finally ended up, and even though I lived in L.A., I always had, my wife and kids were always here. So I just ended up, by the late 80s, I kind of was burnt out, and I came back here and started my own company called West End Productions. And that's, so I've done a variety of commercials and documentaries, promotional films, and stuff like that.
I just wondered if you were always interested in telling stories. I mean, was that something you did as a kid? Or?
I think so. I think part of the reason is I'm Mexican-American. My parents are born in Mexico. They came over. My mother came over in 1920 when she was a year old. My dad was 5 years old in 1923. And even though we've had a great life in Oxnard, but when I went to movies or even on TV, I never saw myself portrayed as a Mexican-American.
Right.
So that was always my thing, to try to tell some stories, and I'm still trying to tell those stories, in a variety of ways.
Yeah. Oh, well, so why do you support women's issues?
Well, Well, I just think, obviously, I think they're our better half. Well, I support women's issues because, I mean, I just think it's something that every man and woman should do, especially now. I mean, it's incredible. I've done this film series for 11 years now. What's incredible is the women's issues all over the world. We've seen through these films. We've seen women are head to toe covered
in burqas or abayas.
Yeah, or they're I showed one film from a female director from Jordan, the first female to direct a film. The film was called Wajda, about a young 12-year-old girl who wants to ride a bike. Well, where they live in the Mideast, they can't ride bikes.
Oh, how sad.
But she was determined to ride a bike, to buy a bike, and she did. She saved her money and bought a bike and ended up riding the bike. So you find out about these things, these simple things that we take for granted,
right,
that are not possible in different cultures.
Right. That really sheds a lot of light on the status of women everywhere, really, that would be an issue.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's we saw another interesting film. Was a film from Turkey by a young female filmmaker, Denise, what was her name? Her name is Denise Erguven. I think she won an Academy Award, and it's called Mustang. Mustang was about 5 orphan girls who live with their uncle and aunt. One day they're out after school, ended up playing in the ocean after school with some boys. I mean, harmless stuff. Well, the word gets back to the uncle that the girls are playing with boys. Oh my God. And this takes place outside of Istanbul. So what do? They end up virtually locking the 5 girls in the house and start getting them ready for marriage. The oldest one, they have arranged marriage, and they're working on the next one, and then the girls start to rebel. So it's, like I said, it's interesting. Even though Istanbul is somewhat modern on the outside, away from the big city, there's still like an old world, old culture, and obviously these taboos that you think are pretty ordinary, but you can't do it over there.
Well, back in the 50s, I went to a Catholic grade school, and we got caught playing with the boys. Now, there certainly weren't those kinds of repercussions, but we were, we had to go to detention because the nuns did not like the fact that we were playing together, which made us all the more determined, I'm sure.
Well, like I said, I went to a grammar school, high school, and even 2 years of college, all Catholic. But I think there are some individuals. Some of the nuns are great. Some of them are a little too uptight. I was forbidden to talk to a girl when I was in 8th grade, which I thought, this is ridiculous.
Oh.
But anyway.
So that made you more determined, too. So just to go on a little bit here, tell us a little bit about the strong women in your life.
Well, the strong woman in my life is my mother, who just had her 99th birthday.
Oh, my gosh.
She lives in Oxnard, so she's still here. She was a very strong woman. My dad was a great provider, but he was busy working all the time. So my mom, and there were 7 of us, so she raised the 7 of us. So I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters. So, and even within her family, she was the rebel of the family. And my mother is totally, they had 10 kids in their family, and my mother is totally different from the other brothers and sisters. She is somebody who's very modern, likes to dress nicely, likes to buy the latest things. I mean, we were dressed nice. I mean, a middle-class family, and I'm just saying she always was there fighting for us and making sure we were ready to go to school or ready to go to college. When I was going to college, she made sure I knew how to wash my clothes, so when I went to college, I'd look nice.
Oh, good for her.
But anyway, she's was always a very strong woman.
Right. You mentioned that your sister is in government and that women should be in power. Could you comment further on that?
Well, my sister also was she was living here in Oxnard. She moved up to Port Townsend, Washington, ended up going into real estate, ended up becoming the city council person, ended up being the mayor of Port Townsend. And she's very, very verbal, very well spoken, and she'll let you know where she stands for sure.
Well, good for her.
But I think all of the families are fairly well spoken. But the women are especially out there. My mother was very, she definitely could out-talk my dad on any day. She could not only let him have it, but definitely beat him to the punch when it came to making a point.
You also mentioned that Hispanic societies appear to be very macho, but are actually matriarchal. Would you expand on
Well,
this
that's
theory?
what I mean. I mean, macho. My dad, I wouldn't say didn't have that machismo thing. At least not when I was around. I was born 1947, so I'm the fifth of seven. So maybe when he was younger, but he was just a hard-working man who provided for his family. But there's this thing about the Mexican culture being macho. But like I said, my mother definitely ruled, because when you're there in the trenches day in and day out with your children, you're the person who's in charge.
You're really the authority, or the mother is really the authority.
Like I'm saying, it's not a negative on my father, but my father was, like I said, he was just busy working, providing for us.
Right. So you're the originator of the nonprofit Oxnard Film Society. Why do you want to bring independent films to local film lovers?
Well, you know what? We offer. So we started. Actually, this is our 11th year in downtown Oxnard, and since 2012, it's been under the auspices of the Oxnard Film Society, which is a nonprofit. But I mean, our goal is to bring critically acclaimed, primarily foreign films to the downtown. We started when we started 11 years ago. We had about 10 or 15 people in the audience. I said, "Look, Oxnard is 200,000 people. I want 100 people in this room." So it took us a few years, but we finally did that and more. So now we have a 3:30 and a 6:30 screening. It's primarily on Mondays, the first and third Mondays, except this summer we went every Monday to test out the audience, and we got very good reception. But it's foreign films, and I think it's great because we think as Americans that we are the creme de la creme. But I think what's important is to see other cultures. Just because they're richer or poorer or different from us doesn't make them any different. We're all human beings. Like I said, it's important for us to I mean, some people only see white people in their communities. Well, it's a big world out there.
Right.
So we have films from all over, whether it's from Russia or from China or the Mideast or France or Europe, Africa. So people, this is a great opportunity for the community to come and see and be entertained and informed. I think as filmmakers, we have a responsibility to create these films that reaches out to entertain, inform, and I think Hollywood's got a lot of films that don't do that. So anyway, it's like I said. So we have a lot of people, and what's very interesting is 11 years ago, people would say, "I can't watch a foreign film with subtitles. I can't read and look at a movie at the same time."
And then they found they could.
Well, they found they could.
Yeah.
What's interesting is now I get calls. "George, what's the film? Is it in subtitles?" "Yes." Then they'll come. They're like me. They're getting old and can't hear, so they have the subtitles.
Oh, right. Assistive device.
Yeah. So the 3:30 show, we have a lot of seniors, and the 6:30 we have seniors, but a lot of younger people in the general population come, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful to get to experience cultures and people from all over the world. I think it's great.
So you're really, thinking about diversity and
Sure.
portraying that to Americans who many, I think only about 5% of Americans really travel abroad. They think America, which it is, a wonderful place,
Sure.
and that's it. There's nothing else beyond.
Well, that's what I
it.
mean. You can spend 90 minutes to 2 hours and go to a different part of the world, and I think it's quite enjoyable.
Right. It is. I go.
Yeah.
Okay, so film is such a powerful medium. I'm trying to think of how to phrase this question. But anyway, you said to me that, film is so powerful that it must be used responsibly. Can
Well,
you
that's
expand on that?
that's what I just meant. It is powerful, just in the sense that you go see a movie where they're a French film that you're drinking a lot of wine and doing this and that.
And then?
You go out of there, and the first thing you want to do is go out and have dinner and have a glass of wine.
Yeah, right. It is very, that's true. That's a
But
good
I'm just
example.
saying, images. There are images and characters and things that you emulate from the movies. Just like any other, whether you're a basketball player or you're on TV or film. I mean, I tell you, one time I've watched West Side Story many times.
Could we just
Yeah.
pause there a moment? I have to do a station ID, and we'll get back to that.
Sure.
This is KPPQ LP Ventura, 104.1 FM, and we're in the women's room where we appreciate and support each other. I'm your host, Kathleen Good. We're talking to George Sandoval, local filmmaker, originator of the Oxnard Film Society, and a supporter of women's rights. The topic today is women protagonists in film, and specifically a documentary about Delores Huerta, a little-known labor activist. Okay, we're back. So tell me about West Side Story.
Oh, just briefly, then we should talk about Delores probably. But the West Side Story I've seen it many times, and people have seen it many times. So one time on TV, on our small TVs that are bigger now. But so we showed it as kind of a retrospective at the Ojai Film Society when I was there with them. We showed it on the big screen. And just the images being so big, anyway, it's a very moving story. And,
Yeah.
everybody walked out of there was crying.
Oh,
So I'm just saying, even though we've seen it before, it's just those huge images, beautiful images, in the dark, by ourselves or we're kind of a community there, and I just think it's a great experience. And what's crazy now is we're watching movies on iPhones. And iPhones and a big screen. There's just no comparison.
no, it's not. To really experiencing what the characters are experiencing. And it's one of my pet peeves, but people who talk or use their cell phones in movies, it's, they really ruin the, personal experience
sure.
that you can get by, or laugh at every single thing, and they just project that out. And, you're experiencing something very differently.
Well, it's funny because a lot of the films that I see, I kind of, all the films that I show and I book, I preview them.
Uh-huh.
And the distributor will send me a link. So on my computer, which is a 15 or 17-inch screen or something, I'll watch a movie now, and then I'll like it. And then I see it on the big screen, and you go, oh, my God, it's so much better and powerful on the big screen. And the Plaza Cinemas 14 in downtown Oxnard, they have, it's the big theater, and it's all 4K projection, the latest technology, great audio, and great popcorn.
Yeah.
So you can't beat it.
Okay, so let's move on to Delores. This is a film, obviously, with the subject and protagonist, a woman, and it's going to be playing in Oxnard next Monday, September 18th. So could you tell us who Delores is and why this is such an important movie?
Well, Delores is Delores Huerta. She, I think, was born in Central California, and she helped start the farm workers movement with Cesar Chavez.
Ah.
But before she met Cesar, she met Fred Ross, who was a community organizer. So she was out there community organizing, certainly before Cesar. And then they got together and fought for the farm workers. It's a very good documentary. It's about 90 minutes long. And you see what she went through. And here's talk about a strong woman.
Uh-huh.
I mean, she was a rebel. She was an activist, a feminist, a mother of 11 kids.
11 kids?
11 kids.
Oh, my gosh.
And she, she was all over the place. And they show her accomplishments, the work she did, but it also has interviews with her children. And her children actually were not that happy with her because she was out fighting for social causes, and they felt neglected. Which brings me to the point, Delores is not available to come to the movie. She's booked someplace else, but her daughter, one of her daughters who's in the film, will be there for Q&A after the film.
Oh, cool. Well,
yeah.
I'll be watching that. I'll be there.
Yeah. So anyway, Delores was a great talker, a great fighter. It's an extraordinary story.
Right, and that's one of the issues that women face, if they have children, to be themselves and do what they feel they need to do, career-wise or otherwise, but there's still the children there, and it's very, very complex.
Well, it is. There's no easy answers. How do you be a leader for social causes? And you can't be in the kitchen and you can't be both. It's so, but that's the way it is. What can you do? Yeah. So you got to make a choice. You have to make a choice. That's just the way it is.
Oh, go ahead.
No, that's it. So anyway, I'm looking forward to. I expect hopefully to have a good crowd because because Doris was in Oxnard. Her and Cesar were in Oxnard for a period of time, organizing the farm workers here in Oxnard.
Oh, well, that leads to my next question. Why is this influential activist, feminist pioneer, and labor leader not studied and barely known? Like, I knew nothing about her before I talked to you, although, like everyone else, I knew the story of Cesar Chavez.
Well, that's right. See, that's another interesting point, is that Cesar is very well known. And people are going to commit. It's Cesar. Cesar is very well known. And somehow she, when you see the newsreel footage, she is there with him, and she's incredibly vocal, and she's eloquent. So somehow he became more well known. And in fact, when he died, they didn't nominate her to take over the union. Somebody else did, so she was not particularly happy about that.
Right.
So anyway, it's just another case where somehow the male gets all the attention and not the female.
Well, when women there aren't that many women we know about in history. They tend to get buried or hidden when it comes to history. And if you say that slowly, it comes out his story. Would you agree with that?
Right. Sure. Well, that's the other point. I can't believe she's not well known.
Uh-huh.
I mean, she's certainly well known in certain circles, certainly out here on the West Coast. So we'll see. Hopefully this movie will change things. And you'll see some comments from different politicians in the film that they don't know who she is and this and that. So anyway, I don't know. It's hard to say. Hard to say why she's not known.
Right. Well, just because I think women tend to not be considered that important in history.
Well, I think that they're not taken as seriously, or sometimes not given the opportunity.
Maybe we need more women history writers.
As a Mexican American filmmaker, I've got to the point where we need to tell our own stories.
Uh-huh.
That's where it's at.
Well, them.
You can't. Yeah, right. We can't complain. I used to complain about they don't do this or that. Well, we need to be responsible and tell our own stories.
Oh. Well, Delores' work with the Farm Workers Union was really the beginning of the concept of environmental justice and certainly social justice. Could you talk a little bit about the genre of social justice documentary? Well,
there are certain filmmakers that definitely work in the social in that social medium now. Well, for instance, we saw a film last night called City of Ghosts. It's I believe the filmmaker's name is Martin Heineman he's American, but he went to Syria to film a story about these young journalists who were fighting ISIS. ISIS took over the city of Raqqa, and nobody knew what was happening. And because they had shut down all communications. So they risked their lives by filming the activities of ISIS and then posting everything on social media and to get the word out. So it's a marvelous documentary. But anyway, there have been many filmmakers. The same thing. I mean, there's films like Salt of the Earth, which was about farm workers, I believe, in Arizona. I think Frederick Wiseman's a documentarian who's made a variety of films. Some concerned with the social well-being of citizens here in the United States. What else is happening? I saw an Iranian film about the women held in the juvenile delinquency centers in Iran. That was pretty powerful.
I saw that. Powerful.
Very powerful.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm saying, you can use your camera as a tool to benefit our society, and to go into those dark corners that normally aren't seen.
Right.
And so anyway, I think it's important. You might not make as much money as as other filmmakers, but it doesn't matter. I think what's important is to find a story that you're passionate about and just go and do it.
Well, we have a few more minutes. I'd like to talk a little bit more about your work. You did an exhibit that was at the Ventura County Museum. Was that like 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, it was 2.5, 3 years ago.
Right, and it's Remember Me. So tell me who you want to remember, and just a little brief description of the exhibit and documentaries associated.
So the exhibit is called We Remember Ventura County to Vietnam and Back. And we were there 3 years ago. I proposed the idea 4 years ago, and to Ana Bermudez and to the executive director of the museum. They liked the idea. So I worked together with them to help produce this event. I thought it was a very good event. So the event really is concerned. I'm a Vietnam veteran, so I thought it was time to try to do something since a lot of the veterans were dying. So this exhibit kind of tries to explain the history of Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh, cover the foreign diplomacy from 1941 to 1975 in Vietnam. And then also, I did interviews with veterans who lived here or from the county. So, and from that, I did a couple of documentaries that I will be showing. There's also a very powerful part of the exhibit was there was 115 young men who died from Ventura County. So I have all their pictures, and we had them lined up, and it's very powerful to see that these young men have been gone for so long, and they're like 19 years old.
Yeah, it's so sad. I saw it, and it was very moving.
So anyway, so the point is, I'm bringing it to downtown Oxnard. We're opening October 20th, running through November 19th, and we're busy working away right now trying to get ready for that.
And where can people get more information from that? If you want to give us your email or website?
Sure. Well, you can go to the Oxnard Film Society.org. There'll be information there. Or you can go to my Facebook page, which is George Sandoval. Or what else? Oxnard Film Society Facebook page.
And that's OxnardFilmSociety.org.
Yeah, OxnardFilmSociety.org. That'll get for updates. So we're just trying to reach out to the media to get something in the Star, get something in the Reporter, and to get the word out.
Okay, well, thank you very much, George. It was very inspiring.
Well, good.
I really appreciate you standing here in the women's room for women.
Well, good. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay. This is KPPQ LP Ventura, 104.1 FM, and we're in the women's room where we appreciate and support each other. I'm your host, Kathleen Good.